Okay, thank you. So we were just on the previous question about the mountains. Was that interrupted?
It is more to say that the vessels were very excited about this information and remembering the frequency that took place, and it had to manifest out as something, and this is why it came as urination.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So just getting to his next question. So he said he had a QHHT session. Um, and he was getting visuals in the beginning, kind of this reptilian visions of food, skin, color. His planet exploded and was destroyed. People died. He had to take a ship to another planet. He wanted to know, was he a reptilian in a previous life, and was this somehow connected to the 94 Draco invasion?
He was connected to a reptile-like species, but there is a very vast, as we could say, understanding about the reptilians and reptile races.
Yes.
But it is more that he was not one of bad in nature, but more one of shy in nature. And this is ones that stem more close towards the mountains. And when he was very connected to the mountains on that time, this is where he stems that from. It is more to say not of a type of lizard, but more of a physical lizard. This is where his frequency stemmed from. He was not, as we could say, involved in the 94 invasion in the sense of the side that invaded. However, he was trying to fight back and help. So this is where he did pick up more conflict from there. But this has been slightly resolved through his body and has been working outside of his body as well.
Yes, because he said when he was listening to the content, he felt like an emotional connection. He felt chills, almost like
Yes.
he wanted to throw up.
Yes, because he was not beamed out of this. He was there and he was, as we could say, fighting for the people, for the release to try and help others. And it is almost as if he awoken something inside of him to try to remove this threat from the planet.
But
He was very successful. He did not be a part of those who died instantly. He was a part of a rebellion who was hiding from them and rescuing people.
okay, but wasn't he a child at that stage, or was that kind of parallel life?
No, it is more to say that he was young, but he was a part of this group. They were still alive on this planet and they were hiding. It is also to say in more of hiding in nature and masking their frequencies and things like that. It is to give a vast network of things took place at that time for a while. It was not immediately reset because there were specific things that needed to happen in order to create the reset. So in those microseconds felt like years on the planet, which was a longer period of time. So the vessel was involved with that, and there was trauma happening, but he was more involved with a rescuing, and this is what he was growing into. But after the reset, this frequency and this memory did not leave his tissue and his body, which is also why he has these doubts, because it is almost as if he is fighting an old memory and an old frequency. And he keeps thinking that it is parallels, but it is just something that did take place in this lifetime of this vessel, but it has been reset that it is not taking place anymore.
Is he not holding on to anything there?
It is he's not holding on to it, but he's not moving it out the body. This is why it is small things that create these types of problems. It is for him to start moving it and allowing the frequencies to move in and out. It is almost to say again as acceptance, to accept that this did take place, this did happen, but also accept that one has been reset. One is no longer in that timeline. So it is to say that it is the same as one watching a movie. If one watches a scary movie, in the moment it feels real, but the movie is over and you are going home now. So one is not still locked in that frequency, and it is just a perception of the shifting that one could take place in.
What do you mean it was reset?
The whole timeline was reset because this was not a part of the plan. It is to say that there is still a timeline where this did take place on a deeper level, but before it could branch out to a certain point, it has been reset for all those to come back. Because this is something that was not decided in that moment. Way before 94, the shift was decided. The shift had to come in. This is why there were different waves of beings and frequencies and different things happening on the planet. This is why the different generations in the different time lapses caused, as we could say, more revolutionary states of mind, states of being, trying to break away from this concept of society, trying to break into and birth into a new world. Because the frequency was so dense at a time that these higher frequencies could not come here and do this. It had to get trickled down through guides and through different beings and different types of things to awaken and bring, as we could say, the vessels back online. There had to be multiple big shifts to allow big bursts of energy come through the collective in order to move them forward and move them forward and move them forward. This is still taking place. It is now that there is a shifting of the kind of mindset that one needs to be in to move towards the 5D. This was a long process, but because of this delay in the process and the way that this happened through a free will of others, it took a long time to be able to outweigh the purpose and what had to take place. Therefore, it was decided that that carried out in a parallel, but to a certain point, and then jumped back, where we did reset the entire timeline. However, because of the reset, it could not reset to what it was originally meant to be. Therefore, there was changes in the reset. And the changes in the reset are, as we could say, the frequency bugs that we are trying to iron out now with different beings, different collectives coming in to try and zone the entire shift back into the 5D perception.
Okay. Well, I do have a video about that. I'm sure he's watched that, so we won't go too much into that. But why was he shown, that life as a reptilian?
It is because that is something that he is harnessing on now. It is that type of frequency. It is to say that it is not a bad thing, but it is just something for him to understand. That type of being that he was had certain abilities. It could connect to the rocks. It could connect to the frequency of the planet that it was on, into the electromagnetic field. It is almost to say that one's energy stream has got a main link, and each life that one has had, whether it be parallel lives, whether it means going into physical lives or even on past lives as other beings, one tends to reflect a different perception that outlines that ability and that energy stream. So it is just, as we could say, different perceptions or mirror frequencies coming to and from to bring into one's ability. That is not the only ability, but it is the one that needs to come forth for what his purpose is now. So it was just different ways of different energy streams where he was learning and gathering information. It is to say that if he goes and sits with inside of himself and truly tries to connect to that time, he would get more visuals of it. And then he's going to get all the lessons that he learned in that lifetime that could help him in this lifetime. It is just another way of networking with one's frequency.
But just to be clear, that when the Draco invasion, he was a human, right? But then
Yes.
the reptilian, that's different. He was
Yes,
different
that
being.
was a different time,
Okay.
and as we could say, a different planet.
Yes. And then, but why was he shown that people died, and the ship left to another planet?
Because that was what happened in that time. Is in that time, that planet that they were on, it was almost as if there was this disruption between them. It is almost similar to the humans now, that there is a group who are of a certain frequency that do not want the joy and the love and everything to happen, and then others who are just here for experience. And is to say the same on his planet. There are multiple reptilian types, and most are quite friendly, and most are actually not aggressive. But the larger groups of the reptilians who are physically larger than the others were more, as we could say, the aggressive ones, were more the ones who streamed to a less peaceful polarity. And those ones enforced on the others, because the others did not team up and fight back against them because they were too peaceful in nature. They were more content in smaller colonies and smaller places and little, as we could say, communities with themselves, and only sit with their type and not interact with the other types, where these other ones would go and in a way have conquered all of these because they wanted more control. And by disconnecting those ones from each section where they were and what they were doing, the planet physically started to die, and this is why they left.
Okay. Anything else about that life or the Draco invasion for him?
No, none at this time.
Okay, so he wanted to know who is he and how can he live the best version of his life. But he says in the same breath, what is the best version of him if he doesn't even know who he is and what he is passionate about?
It is a fickle thing, the mind, is it not?
Yes.
because it is that one is so discontent with where one is that one does not absorb and understand. It is again to say that he is looking at it with the wrong eyes. He does not know himself because he has not taken the time to get to know himself. In the sense of he has never truly zoned into his frequency and said, what am I doing here on a grander purpose? What am I doing just by breathing, just by moving, just by thinking? What am I contributing? By having a lack of this type of interaction, one tends to internally know that one is not looking at one's life from the right perception, which then gives you this false perception into that you are not doing it at a well enough stage. It is something that is repeated to many light workers and many beings all the time. It's just this self-contentness. This is the true ability to master, because when one could almost say that one does not care, one is just going to be, one is then at the most connected. But when one cares too much and is trying to create different things, one steps away from that and doesn't get it. It is quite a simple thing to answer, but yet the most frustrating answer to receive.
Yes. Is there something maybe more practical for him, how he could, become more passionate or find out what his passions are? Is it something about when he was a child, maybe what he enjoyed doing then, or how could he connect with that?
Yes, he could connect to more than what he was doing as a child, but also synchronicities in his life. But
Yes.
truly the thing that creates the most joy for him is to travel. It is to learn. It is to gain more knowledge, not just on the area, but the cultures, the different things, interacting with different people, seeing different sides of things. He likes to have a colorful spectrum. He does not want to work with just one or two colors. He would want to work with the entire rainbow at the same time. He wants to bring forth and play between a lot of things. And it is just to allow himself to free his mind and say, yes, I can stem into these different things. There are multiple passions that he has, but he denies himself of these passions because he does not think that they work in his now reality. And just to say all of these smaller things, this is why he is not moving forward, because he is not fitting what he feels he needs to do into his daily lifestyle. It is more that he thinks about what he wants to do, but instead of carrying it out through his day, he more works towards a mundane way of thinking and experiencing life. It is to take his passions with him, that if he wants to listen to music, listen to music. If he is in a town which is filled with art, go for a pottery class, go to paint a painting, go and experience what makes this place this place. The more that he puts himself into that, that is where he's passionate. He is passionate about absorbing information and understanding the structure and the flow. He is obsessed with going into places that could give him, as we could say, this historical feel. This is what he wants. So it is more to be content in that travel around and absorb as much information as possible, instead of staying in a bubble and only working inside of that. This is why he has the most frustration, because he knows that he should not be in this bubble, but yet he creates this bubble. So the best way to do it is to plan for himself. When he goes on a trip to a place, do research into the place and sit and feel with his soul. What do I feel like I want to learn there? Then he goes, oh, there is this concert happening and I've always liked this artist and the way this one plays piano. And then he would want to go in there and go and listen. And the more he is listening, the more he can pick up the frequencies in the room, and the more he starts to unlock things in his own abilities. It is just the point of awareness. There are a lot of practical steps to take, but the most practical is when one can truly master controlling what one is feeling and how one brings that together, then one has achieved the task.
Yes. So I think it's also about trying and testing new things. So
Yes, we are not going to give him all the answers. This is what he needs to know. He is here for a specific reason. He is here to try, to see, to absorb. It is easy for us to come in and tell him exactly everything that he wants to hear and needs to hear. But where is the drive? Where is the effort? It is almost to say that there is a reward-based system. There is something that you can achieve. However, you would have to do something, set something in motion. And once you have done that, then you are compatible with it. And it is just for him to start putting himself into that state of mind of wanting to achieve and absorb.
yes. Okay, and he wants to know more about 5D. What is his definition of 5D and how can he get there? Are there any practical steps regarding that?
5D is the way of living. This is what it is. It is the way of living the way that was intended, living with the land, living with the planet. The planet is a being. You are a being. He is a being. There are animals, so different frequencies. There's multiple things that are native to an area, and 5D is working into that and living on that, as we could say, conscious level of understanding. There is specific things that keeps one's mind set into 3D is the way of living. One is isolated from others, but living together. One is not having true access to things. It is to say that 5D is going back to the way that it was before these structural systems have been built. There was once a time that the planet did thrive in a 5D environment. This was true. This was starting to take place. But it is that the beings on the planet were not ready for that the delay had to take place. But in that delay, they got lost along the way and lost the connection back to that. And then these structures and these systems started to take place because they did not understand the frequencies that they were interacting in. And therefore, they changed the way that things were being absorbed and then created more a denser plane, and we had to come in and stimulate it out. It is more to say, look at how the beings lived before Atlantis. Before Atlantis was there and all the technology, beings were so connected with the planet. They were so telepathic, they could speak to the plants. They would ask the plants for specific things in the foods and absorb that. They were drinking straight from the mountains. They were drinking the water straight of the earth. There was none of this trade to pay to be on the planet. It is almost to think of it as nature and the wildlife. It is this freedom that all is allowed to exist on this plane, but not necessarily interact with each other. And that is what the 5D is. The 5D is that freedom that one is truly master of one's realm. One can truly manifest instantaneously. If one wanted a specific outcome, one would get it. One could play with one's frequency. One could learn so much and bring so much things that has already been learned from other places into this now place. There is so much potential and frequency. But the 5D never took place in the physical reality. It was almost in that sense. It was really moving from the fourth in towards the fifth. But then, when this delay took place, it created the stagnicity for a very long time. Then it was permitted that it was allowed to play out towards a certain degree, but then when it would get to a certain point and the shift would happen, that interference was allowed to come in to reset those frequencies and dials to move back into that direction. And this is what the waves was about. This is what the different beings who came in, the different shifts. It was to say that that perception and free will was tested to that point. However, now it needs to move into a different direction, and all was already on board and all is on board with that shift and that change. But it is to create those steps to move in and out. So this is what it is, to be more with the frequency around the planet. This is what he wants. He also wants independency. He wants to not have to pay rent to live on this planet. He does not want to have to pay money for his food. He does not want to have to live inside of this bubble that he is told what to do when he has to do it. He does not want to do it. It is almost to say that he is a rebel at heart. He wants to not be there. He is laughing at these ideas and concepts because he knows that this is not the way that it is intended to be on the planet. And this is what his frequency is fighting for, to reset and create these shifts so that it can get to that type of world. 5D is where one lives with the environment around one in that perfect unity, where one does not be more important than the other existing on this frequency.
So you're saying 5D is a state of being, but there's still polarity in 5D, right?
Yes, there is always going to be polarities, because it is almost to say that the polarity comes with the vessel. So 5D was first at an energetical phase, but now it is trickling into a physical. So now the 5D can be accessed in the physical, but there will still be a polarity phase going. Even when one goes into the 6D, eventually there will still be the polarity. Only when one starts to get the 7th and 8th in the physical, the polarity starts to shift completely, because it is hard to keep the physical matter together at that vibration, and it will always stay more, as we could say, at a light realm. But it is more potential to be able to have that. That is our goal. We are forever evolving, we are forever changing, we are forever experiencing ourselves. That is that, and we will never stop experiencing. And the goal is to see how much of the light can we bring into the physical. This is what it is about. We are all playing the same game. We are all on the same frequency, if we can put it as such. But it is, how can it manifest out? What can be built? What planets, what universes, what plants, what animals can be shaped from these different things? It is so boring to just be a light all the time. We want to be experienced as well. And that is what life is, from any perspective of any plane. That life is something that stems from itself. So in the 5D, there will still be polarity and shifts, because it is just the state of being. If one is vibrating at that frequency, and one is, as we could say, more in tune with oneself and understanding, one can bring forth things and realities and do things in this lifetime that is amazing. But if one has achieved that state of being, but one starts to be more of a negative base and doesn't want to be a part of anything and feels sorry for oneself and hates more oneself, one will instantly manifest that side of it where one will see it. It is just about shifting to what you're gravitating towards you.
But as I understand it in 5D, so there is polarity, but we don't become polarized. How does that work?
It is in the sense of saying that one could understand it from the concept of you today. Let us use an example. Today, you could be living in a 5D. Everything is working out for you, all your synchronicities are taking place. One is in a state of receiving. But tomorrow, one could wake up because one maybe slept on one's arm too long and one is not feeling very nice about that feels that frequency throughout the day. So then all of the energy that you commanded the day before says, oh, wait, she wants a different reality because she is thinking about how this is not fair and she doesn't like this. She needs to get this shift, and therefore the reality starts shifting. That is why we're saying it is to think of it as a movie that is a live action and playing. One cannot get the day back. One can go back into the energy, one can go see it, one could maybe meditate in and go and observe it. But one can now at this point not physically take the vessel back to tomorrow and relive the day. That is the beauty of living, is that it is a now moment. It is at every second, every day, every exchange taking place. But it is about what frequency base, what electromagnetic field are you pulling to yourself to fill the experience. The day is still going to take place. You are not going to wake up tomorrow in New York. This is not a reality for you. However, every day that you have after today can set the tone for what is going to take place when you do go to New York. This is the different things. This is the way of understanding. So if one now already starts to feel fear and a different mindset of what is happening in New York City and how everything is and the people and the frequencies, one is lining up those events for when one steps in there and one sees it. But if one is with the mindset of it's going to be amazing, one is going to meet many light workers, there's so much change, there's different types of things taking place. When one gets there, that is the reality that is set up.
Okay, is there any practical steps for him how he could get to 5D?
Yes, it is just to go and change his perception. That is that. But the most practical step that we would give him is what he could go do is go isolate himself more towards nature. As we say, to use a tree for now would be best, but when he is closer to areas with mountains, that would be a heavier pull for him, which he could feel better. But for him to take both of his palms and take off his shoes. His heels need to be flat onto a surface as well as the hands next to it. So almost to be sitting in a specific type of shape, almost with his legs up almost to say like a squat, but not entirely. He could be on top of his bottom, but his legs and feet need to be more flat, and his arms could be anywhere towards the back or the front. Doesn't matter which is more helpful for him depending on his comfortability. And when he's sitting like this, to move the frequency inside of his feet, feel it coming up and then through his hands again. And he could practice this by breath work, by breathing it in and then breathing it back out, and just creating this mindset for himself. And then when he's doing this, he's going to then just be putting all of his attention and focus on his chest to start feeling his physical heart beating or that movement, and start feeling that glow inside of the chest. And once he has eventually started to feel that glow, he can then start trying to move it around his vessel. But the more that he moves it and brings it up, the more that he can connect to it. And once he has connected to it, this is going to take, as we could say, a time period. This is not going to happen immediately. The more he practices, he will achieve this. And once he starts getting it to move and bring it up, and he almost can bring the bubble around his upper torso and his mind, he will start getting all of the visuals, and then he can start sinking into his different things. He will first be able to hold it for, as we could say, a matter of seconds. He must not doubt himself. He must understand that it's a process. Remember, the fifth dimension has never been held in the vessels before. This is what all light workers need to be aware of. It has never streamed through the vessels before. It is now available on the outside and on the planet, but it is now to bring that frequency into the vessels and streaming it. Some get it right for certain periods of time, but none are continuously streaming it in. And thus is the task. We cannot tell you how to stream it in. One must play around and figure it out for oneself in order to pass, as we could say, the test to receive it. But one has to create that physical mind space of wanting to feel it and interact with it. And for him, that would be the best way to do it, is by physically feeling the energy coming in and out of his body.
Okay, is there anything he's holding on to that he needs to let go? Any fear or soul contract not serving a purpose for his highest good?
We would say there is fear. There is a lot of fear into different things. It is more to say also with his relationships. He is more fearful in the sense of how he transitions with everybody around him. But he must not think of this. It is almost to say that one needs to think of it as the more you upgrade, the more you upgrade with those around you. And you will start to see who phases in and who phases out. That is the best way we can say it. But there is a lot of fear and a lot of doubt. But this is normal because of the way that he has been conditioned. It is just for him to become more acceptant of himself. As we could say, he has been here for a long time. He's already seen a lot of different shifts and things on the planet, and it makes him very sad. He has a deep sadness towards the way that many are living and the way that things are happening. And it is for him to almost feel that the more that he works with this frequency and that he travels, he must start giving himself more of the reward of saying, I am here helping more than just myself. And slowly, by putting himself into these positions, he will start to feel better. Fear is just a concept that has been made. It is just the lack of what is not there. And he needs to remind himself that it is there. He needs to put his hand on his heart and feel, my heart is beating now. I am sitting here alive and well, and I am breathing. And therefore, I am where I need to be. And this is not going to happen on the first try, because that doubt and that fear will always linger. But the more he does this and puts himself in that state of mind, the more that is going to phase out. And it is to stay away from different activities and things that make him feel less of himself.
Okay, he said this seems to be most people's struggles with QHHT. He said he had a hard time connecting with his higher self in QHHT. He feels like he wasn't deep enough. What was the purpose? Why could he not connect better? And why was the purpose of being guided to have a QHHT session in the first place?
It is because he was too much in his mind. That is where the disconnect takes place. There needs to be this forever knowing and forever trusting. It is more to say the same as now. Let us take today this information coming through this vessel of Natasha. She is not thinking about the information that's coming in or deciding does it fit or not fit into the frequency. She just allows it to flow. In a sense of she is so in the background that she is not even listening. Only at certain things that she will pick up, because she completely removes what she is doing in her mind to allow the flow to take place. And he did not do this. He was more criticizing everything that came out in a way of, do I see it like this? Do I not? It is more this wanting to overanalyze the situation that one does not allow the flow to take place. So it starts in small synchronicities. The more he works on himself, the more he chips away these pieces, the better it's going to become. But he is drawn to this so that he could continue to get his information and piece for piece. It is just a puzzle. He's only going to get a little piece, and a little piece before he can fully connect, because this is how it works. One has to just receive all of the information, but one still has to do the test. One still has to do it in one's waking life. The more one actively masters it in the waking life, the more one upgrades that level and passes through. And this is why he did not get that at that time, because he was so in his mind. He was blocking himself from that upgrade, therefore he never got it.
But why was he drawn to do it in the first place?
Because he needed to start falling into it. We knew that he was not going to connect immediately because he was in that space already. But he cannot just go under and receive all the information. If it was that easy, all light workers would be doing that at this time. But one needs to be led through different scenarios and through different places to build up and build up and build up. Because if he did not have that, he would not have this session. He would not have contacted you. You would not have had the experiences with the mountains. This energy cycle would not have taken place. His frequency would not have lifted. He would not have gotten the information today and understood it at the level that he is going to understand it today. If that didn't take place like that, he wouldn't be motivated to move. He wouldn't be motivated to trust and understand frequencies and energies. It is all set up in a specific way so that every single thing can unlock and move one thing at a time.
Yes, it is perfect. Like a perfect machine, almost like those wheels working together. Yes.
Yes, so it is never to doubt oneself and say, I cannot do it and I'm not high vibrational enough. No. It is to say that I was just led to a different area to receive more. And the way that you think about it from that concept and that frequency, that highes the frequency that one receives.
So should he do more sessions to improve that ability, or how can he then, better connect with his higher self?
Yes, it is more that he can, in a way, start practicing this with himself. It is to not put himself into, as we could say, a hypnosis state, but it is more to say that one is in more of a guided meditation. So what he could do is he could get something that helps him relax, like the sound of nature, water, the outside of the mountains. He could go and find these types of recordings, and then he could write out a different type of meditational state that he would want to be guided in, and then listen to that recording while he's in the state. Allow himself to guide himself through a meditation and receiving and telling himself the affirmations, because if he hears his own frequency saying it, his body is more respondent. So where he could start to say, you are now relaxed. You are now feeling the highest dimensional love and frequency. You are now activating to one's true self and true ability. I am trusting, I am loving, I am receiving. And I am receiving all that is for me at this point. And I am grateful for this. And then just allowing the other sounds of nature and frequency to flow, he's already allowed himself to put himself into that state of trusting and understanding, because one always trusts one's own voice.
Okay, and then when he had to do a QHHT session again, then he could just trust himself to start talking and just not analyze, just to let it
Yes.
flow, almost like verbal diarrhea.
Because almost as if that state that he is talking into himself, he will start feeling the state of how the energy transpires in his body. And he'll be so comfortable with that transition, so that when someone else starts putting him through that transition, it is almost a familiar transition, and then he could go in deeper.
Well, why is it that someone like Natasha could go in first time and he has to try, a couple of times?
It is because of the purpose. It is because of what they are here for. Natasha is here for a completely different reason than him. Therefore, she is not working with the type of frequencies that he had to work. It is almost to say, to remember that he has had past lives. He has had different experiences. He has had different things that shape him into the ability that he has. Natasha has been created for this experience. She has been created to teach about energy and frequency. And the only way for her to teach is to be able to teach from such a blank perspective, so that she can connect directly to that frequency and translate it out. That is her ability, to absorb it in and transmute it out. Therefore, she can connect to these things. She has no past lives. She has no lives on different planets that she was alone in. She was just part of frequency bases and currents and fields to be able to be introduced into this. But in a sense, her energy was kept blank, so that when she lies like this, she can only connect to that one type of frequency, because she is not linked to other places.
Yes. Okay, makes sense. Okay, and is there any bond or karma that he has with his girlfriend Rowan?
Yes, there is things that they are working around, and things that they have met each other in different lifetimes. But it is just, as again, to take it in with each other, to sit and actually have the deeper conversations, and not conversations in the sense of accusations or even describing things on a deeper level. It is more to just get one's perception. It is more to have this bond with her of clear communication. It is not that they do not have a big clear communication. It is more that they are not communicating about the right things.
Yes.
For them to more sit and actually have these conversations and say, have you ever thought about your frequency field like this, this, and this? Have you ever experienced things like that? What is it like for you when you dream? Do you feel more conscious in that you're being pulled in and out? Did today feel funny to you? Did you feel more a pull towards to go outside in the sun as well? And the more they open these trades of conversation, the more that they would actually see the different things that they can heal just by having a light conversation.
Yes, he said that she was very supportive when he told her about the Parkinson's.
Yes, she has a deep caring for him, but she is just waiting for him to have that communication with her. It is almost to the sense of they are just waiting for each other to start pulling up and getting information. And it's just to bounce. It is to give an example of she is his mirror and he is her mirror. The more that they have these conversations, the more they bounce off ideas and things that they have kept so deep in themselves but fear to say it. They fear to believe it. They fear to induce it into their lifestyle. But the more they talk about it and they see that they have the same fears, they have the same things that they are bouncing back, they will start to laugh and feel more happy and feel like, oh, you felt it too. I thought I was going crazy. And that is where they can create this special bond of understanding. It is just to be more honest with smaller things to open the doors to bigger conversations.
Yes. Okay, and how is his mom doing in terms of soul progressiveness? Is there any advice for her? Because it seems like her body isn't really improving. She has lots of discomforts, pains. She's had problems sleeping, anxiety, stomach problem. So he says she's practicing a lot of spiritual stuff, but she should feel better, right?
Yes, but this is not always the case. You could practice a lot of spiritual things, but it is more of her own mind space. You can practice, but does one believe? This is the way of explaining. But it is more that her vessel is lacking to hold on to the frequency. So it is more for her to focus on the vessel. And it is more simple things of movement and creating this vortex moving through one space. It is not to say that she's doing something wrong, But it's just to say that the way she's doing it, she's not allowing it to take place, if this makes sense.
Is there anything practical for her to, not feel these discomforts and pains?
Yes, it is more to create a time for herself every day, and when she spends time on herself on these things, let us say for her body, to move any kind of aches and pains and these deep, as we could say, frequencies that are not serving her. It is for her to create a practice in where she's actively, let us give example, the hands. Let us say that she is moving the hands around, and when she starts moving them, she must start talking to herself and saying, I'm releasing this frequency here. I can feel that you're tired and you're very sore, but this is not what I want to experience at this time. So please allow this energy to move. And the more one is verbal with oneself, the more one gets results. But it is because one is doing it in one's mind, then one creates doubt. But when it's the first thing that's said, it is almost that it is the first thing that takes action. And it is just to put one in that routine. She's in the right mind space, but it is because she's not bringing the practice fully into her daily life that she's not getting the results that she would desire.
But how is she doing in terms of soul progressiveness?
She is getting there. It is to say that she is not at the fullest potential for herself, but she is where it is more comfortable for her to absorb. It is to remember that she is also breaking away from different realities, belief systems, as well as traumas of her own. So it is to say that she is gradually moving, but the more that he creates this content space and allows this flow, it is going to be easier for her. It is more to say to lead by example. The more peaceful he is, the more peaceful those around him will become. She's progressing at the level that she can, and he needs to accept that.
Okay. Any other advice for his mom?
It is just for her to keep focusing on herself. We do not want to give too much advice for her at this time because we feel that her progression is becoming at the stage that is best for her. It is now just more for him to focus on himself and his attention to what he is doing because he is influencing those around him.
Yes. Okay, and he was saying that his dad passed away when he was 20 and his grandpa passed away 5 years ago. He wants to know, are they still around? And how are they doing?
They are back to their original frequencies and they are where they need to be. He needs to understand that everything is forever flowing and forever moving. There is still essence of their presence in memories and in feelings and in, as we could say, different parallels. This is truth. However, they are back to where they need to be, recycled in. There is not much that we could give on where they are now and what lives and things they are experiencing. But what we can say is they have been transferred back to their souls and they are split into different experiences and realities and they are doing what they need to do as well. And he could know that they are safe, they are with source, they are with light, and they are actually in a sense happier because they are on the energetical side now where it is easier for them to move and not in the experience of the vessel where it makes it harder to move.
Okay, anything else about his dad or his grandpa? Do they have anything to say to him today?
They just send him a lot of love, and that is that. It is that they are happy that he is still thinking of them and loving them and missing them. And they do miss him too and miss the experience. However, they are waiting for him. They are always connected in the energy frequency stream. They all came together as a family because they do have connection. And just because they are not in the physical connection anymore does not mean that they are not there. It is to say that they are more in his field, his energetical field, a part of the current and the frequencies there. And they are guiding and they are there for love. And they are there to connect with him in a deeper level. And he needs to just know this. It is a frequent thing for one's vessel to miss and have a deep sadness because one would want those frequencies there. But it is also an exciting thing to know that there is in the next step and the next evolution and that they are always there in a way but also not there. It is like one's higher self. One's highest self or highest divine energy is always there but not always interacting. But there is always this love.
Okay, is there any forgiveness that he needs to, that he needs to do for someone else or for himself?
Yes, for himself. There is a lot that he would need to do, but as well to forgive those around him, definitely. As because this sometimes creates more of, as we could say, a stagnicity in one's life. It is just to forgive all of the things that has happened to one that one feels has robbed from one's life, which it has not. It is just to forgive yourself and the frequencies that was in that experience, to know that they were just playing a role to allow him to be shaped to where he needs to be. It is all a part of the acceptance, forgiveness.
Yes.
To forgive oneself of saying that I did not understand then, but I do now. How could he grow to be his best self and best potential if he hasn't been put through phases? And it is that simple of just going within oneself and having to say that, yes, there are things that I regret. Yes, there are things of others that made me very sad or hurt me very deeply that I do not want to forgive because of the immense frequency and emotional ability that it has put on me. However, it shaped me to where I am now. I'm grateful for where I am now, and therefore I accept that it had to be there with purpose. And that is all it is. It is just acceptance.
Yes. Okay, so anything else about, forgiveness, judgment, anything else about that?
Those are all the things that are a frequent thing happening inside of the sphere base. That is it. It is not understanding where it is coming from. Why is there this judgment? Why is that happening? He's very smart, but yet he doesn't allow himself to get lost in that, to dissect why it is coming into his reality. But this is something that he needs to play with, because the more he does that, the more he's going to understand himself on a higher and deeper level. It is to say that all of these things is just layers, and he needs to peel back layer for layer in order to completely free himself. But this is part of his journey. It is just to actively start making the first step, and the rest will snowball as it goes along.
Is there any immediate change that he needs to make?
Yes. He could start going with the way that he sees and speaks with himself, because this is going to snowball into what he does with others. It is not to say that he is not kind, but it is more of just the polarity in what he speaks. It is to understand that the tongue is the most powerful vibration. I am is the highest calling of one unity with Source. So if one says, I am not feeling well today, one is calling and saying, I am asking all the love and light from Source to help me experience this experience. But if he says, I am feeling better than I was a few minutes ago, he is already changing that frequency and that upgrade. It is the best to explain it. He must not speak things over himself, but allow things to speak through him, in the sense of not saying I am or this is, but it is to say, what if I had this change? I felt a bit under the weather this morning, but today I'm feeling much better, and creating that structure within himself. Once he starts becoming at this point, all the other stuff will break away a lot quicker. It is truly this simple.
Okay, anything else he needs to let go of?
There are a lot of things that he needs to let go of, but this is not of importance at this time, because if he does not achieve the first step, the others are not going to take place.
Okay, can you please do a body scan, find out if there's anything in his body that's out of balance?
We already moved most of the frequencies, and we've already worked on specific areas as the session was going on, especially in this region over here.
Yes.
There was more static in this pelvic region, but we have moved the flow around, and especially going down in towards more of the lower half of the body, where he needs to focus on the physical of the top half. We've already spread that energy there.
Yes.
There is slight more, as we could say, in his opinion, problematic frequencies, but they have already been moving, and he just needs to keep it this way.
But he says he has severe tinnitus, which started when the Parkinson's started. It seems like it's 24 hours a day, it's all the time. Why did that happen?
It is just because of the way that the vessel is experiencing the physical trauma. It is almost to say that understand that the vessel is a network as well, and where there is one problem, it stems to all the others. And it is just another frequency jumping back about how he is not listening to himself. He is not absorbing it. He is not allowing this frequency to move through. There are multiple emotional aspects, but there are lots of physical aspects as well. But the concept stays the same. It is just to allow that frequency to move to and from, that everything will start to remove itself. It is more to say that we do not want to give him multiple outcomes of things that he can do, because it is just to enhance his perception. If he just enhances his perception on how he works with his body and moving his energy, these things will go away.
Well, why did it manifest in his ears?
Because in his ears, it is one, the way of hearing himself and understanding. It was this conflict of being one's true self, needing something else, wanting to hear from others or outside of how one needs to shape itself. It is that stem of that belief of, I need to hear it from them because I don't believe it. And it is these types of things that move out. And it is also the stagnicity. It is also the physical frequency base inside of the body. The more that, as we could say, the hands and arms and legs and the entire body takes strain from the nervous system of everything moving to and from, it is almost to say that all of the muscles start to pull in. And this is what causes the effect. And when it pulls in towards his chest mainly. And when it pulls from the chest, that affects where it goes down into the body. And this then pulls into this side like that. It becomes emotional, but yet also a physical manifestation. So by opening up the upper channels, this will release everything. This is why we have given him those instructions of how to loosen that tissue and loosen that muscle memory and frequency.
Yes. He says he also has severe lower back pain and neck pain. It seemed like it started when he moved from New York back to Taiwan, when he felt like he had unfinished business or he was lazy, and this kind of pain started again. Why is that?
Yes, but as we say, that is the stagnicity up and down in the spine, that it is not moving. His frequency is not moving through the entire vessel. So these blocks where these energies are taking place is causing these dysfunctions. It is more to say that the more that he masters in himself to move these frequencies, the more he's going to receive that. We are very, as we could say, clear on this subject. It is just a matter of frequency. He needs to understand that he is an electromagnetic field. This is what it is about. And right now, in his field, there are things that are stuck, that are pulling his frequency there. The more he focuses on moving these things, the better. It is to say that there are traffic jams there, and all he has to do is take the GPS and redirect the routes so that it can move to and from. But this is the areas where that frequency is taking the most strain.
But is he clear on how to move these things? Because he seems to be quite good at moving across the planet, right? So yes. How can he move these?
But this is what we are saying. This is why we are not giving, as we could say, 2 practical steps, because it truly is just a perception shift. Once he just physically goes and sits and starts to actively move this with that intention, he is going to be surprised with the level of achievement that he can have, because this is in his nature. This is his frequency. This is what he was born to do on this planet. So the more that he brings himself into that perception and starts working with that, it is almost going to be laughable. He is almost going to have a slight smirk on his face and say, oh yes, I knew it all this time, but I didn't do it, and now I have it. It is more a laughable journey. He is so powerful. He truly can enhance this and remove it so quickly. We are just waiting for him to actively make the change.
But he also has acid reflux. He says he's got trouble swallowing. Sometimes he throws up everything. Food gets stuck in his throat since the Parkinson's started. Why is that?
Because everything is pulling in. Think of it as a web of strings, and there is now one part of the string that's being pulled in and knotting, and it's pulling all of the areas from everywhere. It is to say, think of it as the body has multiple networks, not just the nervous system, but this, as we could say, malfascia. The malfascia is all these thin sheets and linings. They look like slight little webs, see-through webs and frequency sheets in between all the tissue and to and from areas. When these areas start to get dry or there's trauma to it, they start to group in and they start to pull. Now everything is pulling in from these 2 major points. As they pull in like this, it pulls from the lower back in this whole section, and it locks, and it's pulling here as well from the front, and everything locks in, which is pulling out the ears, which hurts the necks. It's all the same thing but causing different effects inside of the body. Once he has moved the physical tissue and helped it, he's going to get, as we could say, more relief, because we have moved the stagnant frequency through his body today, but he has to stretch, he has to cause movement, he has to physically touch his body to move around with his energy from his hands. By doing this, he's already creating, as we could say, these dry sheets that are pulling in, that are housing his areas together. He starts to lubricate them, and all of these little strings start to then relax and go. It is almost to say the same as when one is an athlete and one needs to start running. One cannot just stand up and start running. One has to stretch beforehand to allow the blood to move to and from the tissue. This is still a vessel. This is still a being. He cannot just think it and go. He has to put in the work. It is the same concept as a vehicle. It is to say that if he doesn't put the right oil in or the right fuel, the vehicle is going to cease to move. One must look after one's vehicle. One has to wash it. One has to spray it down. If one just leaves it outside all the time and not touch it and not look after it, after a while this vehicle is not going to drive anymore, and then one gets upset of why does this vehicle not drive? But because one did not do the maintenance. Do the physical maintenance, touch the physical vessel, go and talk to the vessel. His vessel is very eager. He can just place his hands on the pelvic region and then talk to the lower back through the pelvic and say, hey, why are you like this? What is happening? What can I do for you? Then he's going to get the instant thought of, I need to stretch my knee. And then when he starts moving the knee around, he would hear a click. And when the click goes in, he would get the relief. And he says, oh, this is it. But it's because one is so conditioned to want to outside influence that one is not trying to inside influence. Physically speak to the vessel. Physically ask it. Physically do the action. Just do it and it will come. It is that simple.
Yeah, I think we're just so disconnected from our vessels. We don't know how to communicate anymore.
Yes, but that is why the time on the planet, the 5D, it is coming back inside, coming back home, but bringing that knowledge, that experience, that frequency into your daily life. It is such a joyous thing, but nothing can happen without the vessel. None can experience the fifth dimensional frequency on the planet if one is not in sync with the vessel, because the vessel is the sponge absorbing the frequency, allowing the soul to cause the interaction.
Yes, he also has allergies. He says he sneezes the whole day. His eyes are swollen, especially when there's weather changes. He thinks it's dust, pollen, or pollution. Sorry, what can you give me some?
Yes, there's multiple things irritating it, but think of it as I say. Think of all of this. If this is now his muscles and now it's being pulled in and pinched, do you think that anything is going to be able to travel? So that when there is pollen or something getting into the nose and it's irritated, the body cannot send it back out or break it down and move it. The body has to force it out the way it came because it can't travel past the area. The more there is movement and flexibility, it is also for him to be able to talk to himself, put his hands on his face and say, hey, I know that you are very stagnant now and there's something irritating you here. But now I'm going to ask you to let it all come out and I'm going to blow my nose. 3, 2, 1. Boom. And he will see it will start clearing up. This is the quickest way of manifestation. This is the most beautiful thing about the vessel, the communication and the physical intent and the energy. One could solve many things so quickly. But yes, like you say, the outside conditions do play a role in this. But this is why you all are here to start breaking these things and achieving these types of things to show others that it is possible.
Yes, well, I suppose the vessel is always talking. The question is, are we listening?
Yes, the vessel is always there and eager to help. It is waiting just for that communication. It just wants to feel loved. That is it. If one's arm is sore, put your hand on and rub it and say, oh, Did I maybe use you a little too much or keep you in one position the whole time while writing? I'm sorry. And start moving around. And it will be so overjoyed that you are giving it attention, the pain would go away. The pain is the way that the vessel communicates. If you are not listening or paying attention, it is not going to speak to you in your native language. It is going to get your attention the only way that it can, through sensation.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, is there any question I could have asked today that I didn't ask?
No, all was executed beautifully. It is just more for him to create this working space, because it is more to say that he needs to prep himself. This is why the session was given, because if he truly preps himself with the information that we have given and heals his frequency to the point, he is going to meet up with you for travel. He will meet up with you when going to these places, as we could say New York and all of that, because there is grids that he has shifted, and there is grids that your energy needs to go in, and you guys need to start opening and unlocking to remove all of the stagnicity and allow the more feminine energy to move in there. But it is to say that more he is the one that unlocks and you guys stimulate the frequency through. But he has to master this ability so that when he's there, he could do it over the entire place and not just one building.
So you're saying, because I had the feeling like we were going to meet him somewhere or see him in the future, are you saying that we might meet up with him in New York?
Yes, this is as now the highest probability. This is why the session was given, because he is needed for this, but it is now for him to get his vessel ready for that. That is why we are giving him the session. That is why we are not traveling into other things, because this information giving, these instructions are very important, because he has a short period of time to put it into play and master. He must be ready for in the new year to start moving to these places for travel. It will open up for him. He does not need to worry about financial or how it's going to get there. It will all synchronize going forward. He just needs to get his field under control so that he can consciously stream into that, because when you guys are there, it is almost that when he's consciously moving there and allowing that frequency to take place, your divine selves can come through your frequencies and do what they need to do. You two do not need to actively do anything, because you just need to allow that frequency to stream, but he has to actively control more of the space, because it needs to be done from the inside of the planet in a sense, and not energetically from the outside.
Okay, but you're saying he needs to just kind of get his vessel more in alignment and before that happens, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Like we say, he must not stress about that if in the next 3 weeks or so his vessel is not at optimal health. It is time, because each time something breaks away, an upgrade takes place in a shift, and then it sets, and then the next piece and the next piece, preparing his vessel and upgrading it for that time when he has to be there.
And why is it that him and us need to work together?
Because he is the one that is in charge of that electromagnetic field there, that has been moving to and from and sorting things out. There is no one of his kind that is stationed there. He is the one that frequently was there to create these, as we could say, openings and switches in the electromagnetic field, so that the dimension that you will ignite there can take place, so when other light workers come there, they can stream from it.
Is that why he was so heavily called to live in New York? Because he was there for quite a few years.
Yes, because he was setting up these grids and doing these things, but because he wasn't doing it consciously, it had to happen over that period of time, and that is a number of synchronicity.
What is a number?
8.
What about that?
That is the synchronicity to the 8th dimension.
Okay.
That is the 8th dimensional frequency that is being pulled through. That is the unlock of the 8th, so that can become a station where 5th can start to take place in the light workers, but that they can also draw from the 8th there. And it is to create the unity between the male and the female, the even flow, the synchronicity of the 8th.
So last time you told us that we would go there because there's there's too much masculine energy in that city, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes, there is no, as we could say, the feminine energy. That is why it is perceived more as a cold, more bland. There is no empathetic, emotional, nurturing feeling there. And this is for, he has created the grids where it can flow in that perfect harmony. And it is almost as if your guys' frequency is going to ignite that feminine flow so that it can start to move with the masculine in the area.
Okay, anything else you'd like to tell him about that trip? It seems in the new year, right? you're saying.
Yes, but what we will say is when the time is right and when your vessels and his vessels have all come into the right space of synchronicity, we will give instruction then for when it is going to take place and what is going to happen. But we cannot do this now until he starts to actively make these changes. So it is to say it could be before that or it could be a while after that, depending on everyone involved and how they all sync. Because remember, just because there is divine timing with things, you humans still have a free will and a resilient resistance. And therefore, if you are too resistant into that, we have to wait for another time where we can sync up because you all have different timelines and different purposes. So it is more to not think about the trip or focus on it, just to allow oneself to be ready for when it comes and work on these things, and then he will get the word.
I hope it can happen earlier because I really want to see those buildings again.
Yes, right now with the way that it is synced, even with the way that he is now, it is looking really good to have this frequency take place in, as we could say, the beginning phases in the first 4 months of the new year. But it is just in which month of that new year will it take place depending on how the frequencies pull.
Okay, any other last messages for him today?
None at this time. We would just like to let him know again that we love him and that we are very, as we could say, we adore his humor to things. And we would want him to focus more on that, on the humorous side of things, and not how they emotionally make him feel or the different emotions, but to transmute it through that humor, because that is what accelerates him to move forward. We enjoy watching him, we enjoy being around him and a part of him, because it truly makes an experience so worthy when one can truly find the light in the darkness and still turn it into something magical. And we are grateful for him and what he does, and we look forward to talking to him ourselves.
Yes, thank you. And why did he need this session today?
He needed the session to know exactly what to do. Most of the stuff is things that he has already gotten, but he did not, as we could say, truly believe or bring it in. So this was just confirmation for him, but also as prep for his next travels.
Yes. Yeah, he did seem like he had a really good sense of humor, so he should maybe more kind of channel that ability a bit more.
Yes, there's a lot of things that he was laughing at throughout the session because he knows.
Okay. Anything else for him today?
Nothing else that we could give, but we look forward to talking to him again.
Thank you very much.